Hello everyone, Senyo here, Schultz Outfitters. We're going to tie a version of Blane Chocklett's Gamechanger that I call the Laser Changer, and it's done with my laser hair dubbing, and I use the laser hair 4.0 as well, and I blend different lengths. It's just a real fast, inexpensive platform to tie this style fly, and by using the dubbing and the chenilles that I'm going to use, it gives this fly a really cool countdown, very slow sink. So you can get this fly down to like 6-7 inches and get it to hover and stay in that area. Let it sink a little bit more, and you can fish different columns and levels of the river. I can also fish this on a floating line if I want to. Most of the fishing I do is on an intermediate clear sink tip. But I have played with this and done multiple different ways of fishing in different lines. You can also weight these very easily. This version I'm going to show you is unweighted because I like to add beads and tungsten and stuff like that and use like flex epoxy so I can rip it off, reapply it, and make it either sink faster or stay higher. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to tie this. I'm going to take 10mm shank. Just going to make sure that I close that shank off and put a good thread base down. I don't want my material sliding around. I'm going to put the tail in, which I'm using the micro bunny strips. This one here is just multicolored black barred. It's got some purple. It's got some olive. I'm going to cut off a 1/2 inch of the hide here without cutting the hair. I'm going to do that twice. So I'm just going to wet those fibers back, and then I'm going to side to side, almost like a whale tail or dolphin tail. So I'm going to start off by saying that less is more when it comes to this fly. Like, this material can build up and build as much bulk as you want. But I want it to start out very sparse and start building just a light amount of bulk as I go. The whole fly is still pretty compressible. So it's not over bulked where it's just holding this big bulky shape all the time. It's a very thin, bullet-like, whipsy minnow type imitation that you will get from this. So if you go too heavy, it will really impede how that swim is gonna transpire. So I'm gonna take some of this laser dubbing, and I'm just using white here, just easier to show you and since it's longer, all I'm gonna do is just cut it down. So I just got it all going the same way. I cut it down, and I just made it a little shorter. I just don't want straight, even edges, so I'm just gonna pull it until I get everything tapered again. And I'm going to make a V, stick it right over, just do a loose wrap so I can cinch it down right behind the eye. I'm going to lock that down with several thread wraps, and I'm going to fold this over. Bring your thread to the front. Now I've been really on this bone dry. I really like this stuff that sinks into the material really, really well. I like to add just a little bit of that on every segment that we're going to go. I think it adds just a little bit of weight too, and it crystallizes that thread really hard. So there's our tail. So what I'm going to do is just hold on to my rabbit, pull. If the rabbit gets in the way, I just wet it a little bit so that way I can separate my dubbing away. And then it's just a straight cut. So you bring everything forward, and it's a straight cut. And what I'm going to do is I just cut it so that it just folds back over and covers the rabbit the tail that I put on. So you can't see anything where I put the rabbit on, but everything you do when you move forward, you're just going to make that cut just a little bigger, little bigger, little bigger, little bigger as you go. So since the tail is done, and I'm doing more like a shad type grays and whites and stuff like that with this one. So in the next one, we're going to put it in. It's another 10 mil. So I'm going to take some gray. So this is called Palmer Chenille. You can get this in size large and size medium. But if you look at that cord is micro thin. So you don't build up a lot of bulk in the tail and in the mid sections of this pattern trying to put your flash on. It's just a lot easier to handle. And you get everything you need out of it still. So I'm going to tie that in. I'm going to wrap that basically for 3/4 of that shank. And if it's the first time you're doing this, I would leave a little bit more room so that way you can make sure that you tie and finish this off without that material going over the top of the eye when you put that last little bit of dubbing in. So once that polar chenille is in, I've already got it locked down. I'm literally going to grab all of that Palmer chenille, pull it forward, and I've already pretty much, I know, I just want it to start moving into, so I'm going to trim this so where it just lays nice and even into the next fly. So what I'll do is I'll make a cut and I'll let it fold. And as long as it's not going past, I'll let it rest. So see how I'm really close there? Like it goes past, but it's not crazy far. So what you do is you just come back up, pull it all up. Just going to take a smidge more. And this is just rough trimming. We're actually going to do like a final trim on the segments to make this all flow together real nice and easy. So again, I'm going to take some of my dub, make a V, use my thumb. So you got a V, slide it on. Going to grab one of my 23mm trout shanks. What you're going to do is you're going to lock that in. Now you can use both sides of this, even though there is an up eye on it. It still cants it off just slightly, or you can use the rear loop to use as your connection. I try to use the whole shank, so I'm going to cut this down the middle because it's going to be on a smaller hook. And then I'll have the extra one. So the hook I'm using a Gammarus. This is a number 4. This is an Ahrex hook. And you can do this on larger hooks, larger sizes. Some guys are afraid they're going to bend. I haven't personally bent one on a bass on these, but you know, I'm not saying it wouldn't happen. If you're fishing for big fish, I would go to the saltwater version just to give yourself a little bit more beef. I just like the way the fly swims with these hooks. I'm going to take that cut shank. We're just going to attach it to the hook. I'm going to just secure this in really good, and then I'm going to brush this out real quick to make sure I can keep that taper going through the body. I'm just going to brush this out, and like I brush hard. Wire brush, I brush hard. I want it to rip fibers so I can see what that profile is going to look like. I'll take my trimming scissors and I'm going to stay on that taper. I do the top. I do the same on the bottom. Then I just turn the vise. Pull these out to the side, and I do the same thing on the sides. And just leave that rough trim like that. So there's my tail. grab a 15mm shank. And this is another Gammarus hook. It's just bigger. It's a size 2. So before I put too much on, since this is holding everything together here, this is where your main connection is. I just add it just to add it. It's a little bit of glue. So at this point now we can do basically almost like your final trim. So I'm going to really beat this fly up. Get any loose fibers flowing. You're going to have this stuff all over your house. You can see the profile is already there just from the rough trim that we did. I like to, we have all kinds of scissors, but we have some really large fine cut scissors. That's the way to go. You can kind of get it all in one shot. So I'm just going to take a little bit just to start an angle. Come right down. Lift that up. And this is where I put a little bit of time, especially if I'm tying for my own box. So now that I'm at the back, I'm going to take some of Blane's hairline filler flash. I'm going to take a chunk of this off. Put our pec fins in, so we're going to grab our rabbit again. Turn your vise to the side. Lock your rabbit in. And I'm just running those pecs where the feathers literally are just getting into the back of that last shank. So it's not going to impede any kind of movement. I just make sure that they're even. I put the next one in. And now we can do the head. And the head's like color of your choice. You know, I do these in 100 different ways. This shady color with pink has just been super good to me. So I'm going to continue that route today. So we're just going to take that, make your V and it's a little thicker. You know, like I want that little bit of bulk in the head. Help push some water. Let's center that on, loose wrap it, and you'll feel it lock right in between, right behind, you know, right behind that eye. Okay, and it should be tight. So it's right there's my eye. So sometimes you need to just give it a little push, just like so. I fold all those fibers back, and I just bring my thread up. And you don't need a lot of wraps here. You know, a dozen or so, half dozen, whatever you want, because you're gonna, this epoxy soaks way deep in there. And just make sure you don't have so much on there that you get it in the eyes. So I just circle it real quick. Make sure nothing's in the eye. And I pull hard. If you notice, like, it will move your hook a little bit, and it's okay. These vices are great. They hold pretty tough, but I really put some effort into it. So now that we're here at the end, so we have our fly. You can add eyes if you want. I always do. Some guys don't. It is a personal preference of what you want to do. But I do give this a solid beat down with a brush. Make sure all long fibers come out so that we can trim them. And I say you take your time here. You find every loose fiber that is there, and you get rid of it. I just trim them to go with the profile. And you'll notice, since we've already trimmed the body, we don't have like all day trimming to finish this fly. It's already there. So let's see. And I stick with these super pearls. I really like these super pearls. I'll put a drop on here. And what you want to do is you want to place that eye where it is slightly above the hook. We don't want to be in the hook gap at all. And I'm almost setting it right on where you put those pec fins, okay? Make sure I'm happy with the location. It's above that hook shank. Push it down. There we are. You have your dubbing style game changer with filler flash, some Palmer Chenille. You can any color variation that you want. But this has been a winner for me. If you guys follow me on Instagram or any of that stuff, you've seen some of the large bass. This is the fly that I've been doing really good with. So laser hair dubbing changers. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for joining us tonight.